Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Ronnie K in New York. Welcome to the Backstep. And that good-looking devil with that big bushy mustache, that's my other half, my brother from another mother. Tommy, what's going on, pal?
We've been getting a touch of false spring. It's been in the high 50s, low 60s. And I know winter is going to come back and slap us in the face.
Yeah, that's what usually happens. Yeah.
I was looking online at some fire video earlier, and it looks like you guys got snow.
Yeah, we're having like three mini storms in a row. We got something. What's today? Today's Thursday. So we got something Monday night into Tuesday, last night into this morning, and then Saturday night coming into Sunday. They're like, 3 and 4 and 5 little inch things. Today we were lucky. It snowed the beginning of the overnight, and then it got warmed up and turned to rain. So by the time I left this morning to go in, it was gone. So, but that again, Saturday night into Sunday, another 3 to 5, and here we go. So these people this show gets posted on Monday. So we're actually talking about weather that didn't happen yet, but it would have already happened when you watch the show. Does that make any sense? I hope not. But anyway, that's what's going on, man. It's been kind of wacky. Yeah, they predicted for the Northeast a snowy, icy, crappy month of February, and it's living up to that prediction. So
it's we have had no moisture. It's drier than a popcorn fart right now, and I don't know what the summer is going to bring.
Yeah, who the hell knows? I mean, who the hell knows? At least listen, the fires are out in California, thank God. Now I heard something today. Maybe you heard it. They said that they're under an evacuation order for the next 48 hours, but I didn't hear for what. Is it going to they're going to get torrential rains leading to mudslides or something? Or
quite possibly. And that was I think it was an old Johnny Carson bit that the good news, folks, the mudslides put the fires out.
Yeah, right. No kidding.
But no, I haven't been on the news today to see what was going around and what's causing that.
That's because you're no longer a commuter. Okay, you're not a commuter. Okay, I live and die by that radio going in and coming home because New York traffic, to say the least. Even if you were a commuter, you get there's 2 cows and a horse in the road. You have to wait 3 minutes for them to get out of the way for you. So I got the news on, all morning going in and just about all time coming home in the afternoon. But they said today, and so we'll have to let it out of the bag, even though folks are watching this Monday. Today is Thursday. Before
I want to make sure that I haven't completely lost my touch with reality. Are you listening to 1010 Wins on the radio?
I am. 1010 Wins. What happened was there were 2 news stations in New York, 1010 Wins and CBS 880. The same company bought both of them, and they decided they're only going to have one news station. So they folded CBS 880 about 4 or 5 months ago, and they were on the air for 70 years.
Wow.
They were on the air from like the 40s. They started early, 60 years, something like that. So they took CBS. Most of the folks were absorbed because it's the same company. So I'm hearing some of the same anchor people and some of the field reporters, but there's a couple of guys on. There's the guy in the morning and the guy who gets me home in the afternoon. They're a scream. These guys have taken the news and made it into a stand-up act. They're hysterical. I'm telling you, man.
It just goes to prove you can take the boy out of Jersey, but you can't take Jersey out of the boy.
10 Wins, you got it. And he said, the guy in the afternoon, he says, they locked up a guy for child porn, exposing himself, this, that. So he's listing all the charges. And he goes, oh, yeah, they charged him with being a pervert. Nah, I just drew that in, he says. That kind of stuff. The guy does that every day. He's hysterical. So he makes the news fun, at least. At least the news isn't just dry and, it's not Cronkite news anyway, Like anybody who knows who's Cronkite is listening to this thing. So here we are up on the Backstep. It's February. I hate to start on a dark note here, but we got word last night out of Binghamton, New York, that a lieutenant was killed in action. John Gaudette, with 11 years with the Binghamton, New York Fire Department, leaves a wife and 3 kids. So keep the Gaudette family in your prayers. We don't know what happened yet. They said there was a collapse, but of course, we always take a moment to pay tribute to our brothers and sisters who may fall on the line of duty. So keep the Gaudet family in your thoughts and prayers, as Tommy would always say. So I when you were around, as long as we've been around, which is like a million years, we hear things, we see things, we read, we go on the net, and I picked up something interesting today, Tom. There's a story on Firehouse. There's a lieutenant in Glens Falls, New York, which is, I think it's literally up near Canada. Anything north of me, I say, oh, that's the Canadian border. But Glens Falls is somewhere up there, and this poor guy, a young guy, he got Alzheimer's disease, and he had 18 years. He needed 20 to qualify for a pension with benefits and all that. So the guys in the fire department were offering up all their PTO and all their time off to donate to him, to bring him to that 20, and the city won't let him do it. You can't do it; it's illegal. So then they went a little bit further, and they found out later on, well, yeah, maybe you can do it. And then during that whole thing, battling the courts in the city, somebody else in the city said, you know what? This guy did 18 years with the fire department. He's got Alzheimer's. It's not his fault. He's not trying to cheat or anything. So they actually gave him his retirement with benefits with Alzheimer's disease. And the reason why I bring it up is because, we're on this path of trying to take care of brothers and sisters who are getting cancer. And, there's the heart. It started with the heart bill, and now it's cancer. So here's another unfortunate, groundbreaking issue where here's a young lieutenant. His name is, I got it here somewhere, Doug Hull, Holl, Hull, whatever it is. And the poor guy has Alzheimer's, but the city thought it was prudent to pension him off and give him, benefits and all that stuff. So, you hate to say, well, it's a victory because it's not for him or his family. But when you look at holistically at the fire service, with some of the things that can sneak up on us, it's another one of those things we just kind of keep on the back shelf,
When I had never made the correlation between firefighters getting sick and Parkinson's, and that's rears its head up quite a bit, as you know, with some of the cancer stuff, and I'm glad to see that kind of counts. Alzheimer's is just absolutely horrifying.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. It's tougher on the family than it is on the person, because the person kind of doesn't know that they have it, because they have this memory loss and but it's murder on the family, and that it leads to dementia and all that other stuff. I've seen it in old folks. My father-in-law had some of that when he was near the end of his life, and then it led to dementia and it led to other things, and so it was murder on the family, so this city of Glens Falls, New York, they saw their way clear to take care of this guy, and kudos to them. We don't get a lot of, when it comes to that kind of stuff, we don't get a lot of victories from local government, community, town councils.
Nice to see somebody doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely, somebody doing the right thing.
So
go ahead.
I had the opportunity and the sad opportunity to kind of stay glued to the television with two back-to-back air disasters going on. And I got to tell you that between New York and Philly, one of the things I like to look for is, who's standing up and who's doing the thing. And the two guys that really kind of jumped up at me, DCFD Chief John Donnelly was doing the press updates for the Unified Command. What a great human being. This guy was the shit.
And it's refreshing to finally see a Washington, D.C. chief like that. Because the string of chiefs they've had over the years were just, oh my God, this is the nation's capital, for crying out loud. This is the best they could do. But I know he's a stand-up guy, this guy Donnelly. He really is.
No, Chief Donnelly did a phenomenal job. And then, the day and a little more after, with the air disaster in Philadelphia. Oh my God, Ron, that plane disintegrated.
Yeah, I know.
And having not having worked with them, but kind of knowing the process that the NTSB goes through. They're going to take all that crap that was in the streets of Philly and try to put that plane back together.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's fun.
It's going to take them some time, but that's all part of the deal. But Adam Thiel popped up.
I saw
a couple of times, and if you don't know Adam, he's a former fire commissioner in Philadelphia, and is now, I think they call him the managing director for the city, basically the city manager. But he was out there with the mayor with his turnout gear on.
I saw him. It
baffles my heart that he didn't forget where he came from.
Yeah, Adam's a smart guy, and he didn't forget where he came from. But there's a show on Smithsonian Channel. Yes, I am an old guy. I watch the Smithsonian Channel, ladies and gentlemen. But it's called Air Disasters, and you can see them. They advertise on the other cable channel, and for some strange reason, Mrs. K got pulled into this TV show, and she watched all of them. So she pulled me in. But it really, when you watch it enough, you can appreciate the work and the painstaking investigative work that the NTSB does on one of these crashes. Some of these crashes take 2 and 3 years to figure out what the hell happened. So a lot of time, as soon as there's an air crash, 5 minutes later, everybody's standing and saying, well, what the hell happened? Forget it, folks. This is one of them, really, just like, what we always say about our line of duties. I say, keep your gun holstered. You got to wait. This is like, take your guns off, stick them in a safe. They're going to be in there for 2 years, So, but and interestingly enough, also watching it enough times, we probably in the last 6, 8, 10 months unfortunately have seen about 50 crashes on this TV show. A lot of them overseas, not a lot of them U.S. airlines, a lot of them are, third world country type airlines. But we've kind of come to realize, like when we watch a newer one, and when this things start to happen, my wife will say, "That's just pilot error," or like they lost the hydraulics, and because we learned from the show, But the work the NTSB does, those guys, and some of them, I tell you, these guys are geniuses, man. They put these scenes back together, and like, how the hell did you do that?
Meticulous work.
It is.
It makes fire scene reconstruction look like child's play.
No, you're right, Tommy. You're right. There was one on the other day she was watching, and they brought in one of those, like I forget what it's a laser, and it spins, and it can kind of reconstruct things, and they get 3D pictures out of that, but they look at stuff, and I have a fire investigation background, not like you, but a background. I know I did a little bit of that in my career. You did a lot of that, but as they're going through they're picking up stuff off of pieces of metal, and the other thing is they have specialists, they have metallurgists that look at how the metal behaved, whether it tore, it ripped, it exploded, it whatever, and then they have fire guys, they have fire and explosion guys to see it, and then they have all these specialists that get a piece of this airplane, especially when the flight data recorder and the cockpit recorders are shot, especially because then they don't have a clue at all. They got a half a shot if they could play those tapes.
Yeah,
they can hear things, and then you learn that they can hear. There are 6 microphones in the cockpit. So what they've picked up, other than the pilot and co-pilot talking to each other, is they've heard sounds. They heard like a boom or a thud, and they stop the tape and they go, "Okay, what was that?" They had one of them was carrying a cargo on an airline plane, and the fire started in the cargo. They had a vehicle in the cargo section, like there was half cargo, half people, and they had a tire fire back there, and they heard the thud, and that was when the tire let go.
Huh.
Yeah, and that was the tire fire came from a spill of some hazmat, and it started to burn the car back there, or the Jeep, or whatever it was, and they heard the thud when the tire let go. So it's painstaking work, but they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. There's very few air crashes that they weren't able to figure out.
No, there was a guy that worked for the medical examiner's office here in New Mexico, and that's kind of a state-run gig instead of like county coroners. All the death investigation comes out of the state office. But one of their investigators took our fire investigation class at the New Mexico Fire Academy, and just talking with them, different perspectives. I'm a big proponent of if you got a fire death, you need to send somebody down to observe the autopsy because you're going to get answers right then and there to some of the questions. But this guy left the state office and went to work for NTSB as one of their medical investigators.
How about that?
And, I've had a chance to visit with him a couple of times, and it was just mind blowing of the stuff that they do.
I bet they even have human behavior specialists. Like they look at the captain and the co-pilot and whatever, and they look at their record. They look at the tests that they took, the school they went to, and then they dig deep into the background of current. Like, was the guy sick? Was he depressed? And so they investigate all of that human behavior stuff and medical stuff. And to try to say, what his thought process might have been. And, why couldn't he figure out to put the flaps down? Like, how did he not do that? 20-year pilot, 35,000 hours of flying. How did they not put the flaps down? That kind of stuff. But they try to think about and figure out what his mind might have been going through at that moment. So it's an incredible, the work they do is just crazy, man.
For as many times as I've flown in and out of Reagan, I didn't realize that the Potomac was so shallow in some of those areas, and they were working in like 3.5, maybe 4 feet of water.
Yeah.
But there's shipping channels apparently that are dredged for the boat traffic coming in and out of the river.
I never heard that. I didn't know that, but I know when they had the was it Air Florida crash that when it hit the bridge and then it went in also in February during a snowstorm, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't in deep water. I think the water was 12 feet or 16 feet, which isn't really deep. I mean, you can't walk on the bottom.
Yeah.
But one of the books in my book club that we're going to talk about at the end, it talks about that crash as well, and I'll kind of hit it then. But yeah, so what this discussion, what I wrote down, knowing we were going to talk about this, Tom, was the question to the fire service, to all of our fans, our 3 people who watch us every month, our loyal following, is: are you prepared? Because a helicopter, a Piper Cub, or a jet can fall out of the damn sky anywhere. You don't have to have an airport near you. You don't have to have an airport within 5 miles of you. Things that fly, gravity says, gravity wants a win. Now, it doesn't happen a lot. It really doesn't happen often, and Philly's a big city. And my guess, and I'm not sure how much fire they had when that plane crashed.
It caused a 3-alarm fire.
Okay. Did it go to structures? Did it go?
Yeah. It got into a row house.
Okay.
And a bunch of vehicles broke open natural gas lines. They had their hands full.
Yeah. So the question is, how ready are you? You're a small rural fire department. I just saw something online. A helicopter landed in a cornfield in Maryland today.
Huh.
I think it was either military. I think it was military. They were heading back to the airport or to the base, and they said, we're not sure we're going to make it. Put it down in the cornfield, So you don't know where it's coming down or when. And again, thank goodness it's not an everyday occurrence. But are you prepared? I did 2 years ago. I did a consult for a small regional airport, and what was going on with that job is the owners were worried because the people in the next property sold the property to a developer who was going to put up 8 or 9 big warehouses at the foot of the runway. Okay. And he was trying to convince them, and he gets full-size jets in there. He gets 737, 740. And he said, if this guy goes off the end of the runway, he's going to go through the fence and he's going to hit one of your buildings and we're going to kill people. This is a bad idea. So he offered to buy the property just to keep it empty, just so that jet has extra extra bounce power at the end and land in the swamp somewhere. So they were going back and forth. So they hired me to look at the proposed new complex, the fire protection, the hydrant system, all of that stuff. I worked on it for about a year with the owner of this airport. And at the end of the day, one of the things I did was I had to reach out to the local fire services and said, how prepared are you for an air crash? You know, you already have an airport. You're already getting jets, you know. So now are you prepared for that? And then if they put up 8 warehouses in this adjacent property at the end of the runway, you know, how prepared are you for that? And they were, you know, a large volunteer outfit, a little bit of career mixed in there somewhere. But I never got a definitive answer. And, you know, I made some inquiries. I never got a definitive answer. And so that's really the message here for this thing is you better be prepared. I mean, you know, you're more likely to get a gasoline tanker rolling over on Main Street. You know, again, back to foam. You know, how good are you with your foam? You know, your reductor nozzles. Do you have a cell on the rig? A 50-gallon foam cell probably won't do it for 9,000 gallons of gas. Just so you know, everybody's nice and comfortable. We got a foam cell. We got 50 gallons of foam. We could take 2 lines off of that or 1 line. It's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough if you got that.
They were estimating 7,000 gallons on the Philly crash. That was a medical transport.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it was full. They were going eventually back to Tijuana, Mexico, with the patient there, and they had a fuel stop scheduled. I want to say in Missouri, I think, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, are you ready for that? I watched, you know, Farmington come full circle. The airport fire station was staffed the whole time I worked for them, and in the heyday when the oil fields were booming, there was a lot of air traffic coming in and out of here, and that stopped. The bottom kind of fell out of the economy, and they ended up not staffing the airport station anymore. If there was an incident, the downtown station would come up and grab the crash truck and other stuff out of the airport. But we're starting to get commercial air traffic again. So United's going to be flying in one of the smaller planes to do a flight to Denver. And the way the FAA rules are, they'll have to make sure at least the station is staffed while the commercial traffic's coming in and out.
Gotcha.
But there's places out there that, you know, you got a landing strip and that's it.
Right. The FAA has a million rules too. You know. You know, landing strip reminds me of Telluride International, which you so aptly said to me that day. I got out of. If you remember, I flew in from Denver to Telluride, and it was an excursion with a propeller, Ford excursion with a propeller on the front. They flew me there, right? And I pulled into that landing strip on top of the mountain. You said, "Welcome to Telluride International," you know, and we almost hit 3 cows on the way in. You know, it was terrible. So, but that's another one of those things. It's a low frequency, high consequence thing, right? Our good friend Gordon Graham talks about that. Low frequency, high. Doesn't happen. I don't know when the last time a plane flew out of the sky in Philadelphia, and they got a huge airport over there. Right? They got a busy airport, but it doesn't happen. You know, it just doesn't happen all the time. So I don't want to say we get complacent, but we get complacent with certain things. You know, like once in a while. So when I was in Wilton, Connecticut, you know, I asked the guys, how often do you drill with foam? You know, oh well, we try to do it once a year. Okay, let's do it because we don't know. You know, Danbury Airport wasn't far away. It's a local regional airport, you know, a lot of Piper Cubs and that kind of stuff. But guys coming in, he's on fire, or he loses his oil pressure, and he's going to come down on Route 7 in Wilton. You know, so it's like, are we ready for that? You know, so yeah, the question is, are you ready? And if you're not, at least start the discussion. You know, we can't solve all your problems here on the Backstep, but
sure we can.
Yeah, for the amount of money that we get paid, we should be able to solve all those problems for all these nice people out there. But that's that. So You got something, or you want me to go? You got something?
You go, and then I'll jump in behind you.
All right. So in the under the heading of WTF, well-trained firefighters, or what the heck? All right. I almost said what the fuck on it, but I didn't want to say that. And I don't want to. I want to refrain from doing that. So big story on firehouse.com and fire engine. Everybody covers the same stuff. Fire engineering, firehouse. A career guy, 24 years or so in New Jersey. Okay, I won't say the town because you can look it up yourself. Started harassing a young female firefighter from the day she walked into the place. Grabbed her ass, dirty jokes, talked about her body, talked about her anatomy, with no consequence. Like nothing. First of all, what the hell is this guy thinking? Like if you think it's not before 1985 anymore. It's not that. We got a new fire service going on. It's not that. So, but it wasn't like one time. It was like every time they worked for a long time. She's a probie. She's afraid to say anything. She don't want to get fired or whatever. So after a while, I guess after probation, whatever, she went to the captain in the interim, and he gave the guy a knock it off, kind of knock it off, stop it. And he did, and he kept going. And finally, she went to the fire chief, who started to take action and went to the town. And then so this guy, he retired early. He had 23 or 24 years. He retired. He quit. And there's no consequence for this idiot. There's nothing. It's like, what the hell are you doing, man? And so what happens is he ends up getting rehired by an ambulance service. I guess he's a medic or an EMT or something, in the town. And he's still working and he's thriving. He's got his pension. And it's like, what are we doing here? We talk about this thing called reputation management, and for that to go on today, and not that it was right 25 years ago, but it was more, I guess, socially acceptable 25 to everybody to harass everybody. There wasn't not men and women, but guys to harass guys in the firehouse and just bust their chops and do all that. But this guy was like blatant. I mean, he had his hands on this girl more than once, come up behind her in the kitchen, give her a hug, kiss her on the neck. Like, what are you doing? Are you out of your mind? I don't get that, Tommy. I don't get it. I don't get it.
No, and because of my history of having a daughter that's in the fire service, and I mean, there's the camaraderie thing is still there, and she's all part of that. But I don't see anybody harassing her, and probably a good thing, because you might say, well, that's hazing and all that. No, that's my daughter.
And I have a daughter as well. Mm-hmm. Although she couldn't fit in with the fire service, because my daughter, she was like, you have anything other than navy blue? So it wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work. Do I have to get up at 2:00 in the morning? I don't think this is for me, So, but yeah, it's my daughter. Exactly. And so, I met Shaylee once or twice, and I know she's a smart kid. And I don't think she'd ever come home and say, hey, Dad, guess what happened to me today? Because Dad's on the way out of the house with the pickup truck with the shotgun on the window, So, yeah. So but I don't know what the hell this guy, I don't know if this gal was married, had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or told her parents. So evidently she kept it to herself the whole time. And my heart goes out to her. She's the victim here, This guy's an idiot. He's lucky he didn't get
What precipitated the article? Was there an incident or?
No, because it finally came out that she was either going to sue, or the story broke that she's been sexually harassed all this time. I forgot what the crux of how it came out, but this guy, he got away with it. He harassed her for a couple of years, managed to retire early and get another job, and so it's like I don't get that one. In the same category, I read something. So a St. Louis firefighter was charged with 17 felonies. He stole a wallet off a patient in the back of an ambulance and used the credit cards. Okay, so he committed the crimes. Done, fired, finished. I think he did time served already because he was in for a short time, blah, blah, blah. Suspend the sentence. So finally pled guilty, I think, to 1 misdemeanor and 1 felony, off the job. 6 months later, he's working for the city again. So when you read that article, it's like, well, how did that happen? He's not a fireman, but he's a building inspector, which is more opportunity to take more money illegally and do shit like that, right? So what the city's defense was that he was never fired. He resigned. They let him resign. Once he resigned, his record is clean.
Yeah.
Where'd you work before? I was a firefighter for 20 years for the city, and I resigned. I wanted to resign. Okay. So he has no black mark, so to speak, on his record because he quit, And now today, in most states, they're not allowed to ask you if you have ever had a record or got arrested. That's a new thing. They're not allowed to ask you that. So they didn't ask him, and they looked at his work history, and they hired him as a building inspector. And he's working for the city again, making a nice salary. So I don't get this stuff, man. I just don't. I guess I'm not wired like that. I'm just not wired like that. Like, how could you ever show your face anywhere in the city of St. Louis ever as anybody? Being you took this guy's wallet, stole all his money, stole his credit cards, used them, felonies and all that, and then he's out there doing building inspections now. I don't get it, man. Maybe it's me. I always say that. Maybe it's me.
It's and I hate to say it's a generational thing, but I look at what has happened that I've been able to observe, and even coming up as a kid, I can remember my grandfather and his brother-in-laws, who were all firefighters, that if you had a personnel issue or something going on with a guy, 9 times out of 10, they take him out behind the firehouse and kick the shit out of him.
Oh, yeah.
And solve the problem. Yeah, and I realize we can't do that anymore.
Right, that's right. There's got
to be some semblance of reality and a balance there that whatever the infraction is, the punishment should fit that.
Yeah, right. I can't agree with you more. It's a different. Listen, it's a different world. It's a different society. A different fire department. One of the problems we're having, I think, on a nationwide basis, is the firefighters and the fire service. Not all of them, but a lot of them don't believe any of this stuff applies to them.
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, there's women's rights, and there's LGBTQ, and there's racial stuff and diversity, equity, and inclusion. That doesn't doesn't pertain. This is the firehouse, man. Guess what? We're in it. This is society's demanding this from everybody, no matter what you do for a living. I don't care if you're a fireman, you're a cop, a teacher, a lawyer, whatever. Society currently demands this behavior, and we're not exempt. And we're right now. The New York Fire Department is in the middle of a new program called Leadership Development, and it's really more leadership centric. But what's discussed a little bit in this 8-hour day is a little bit of the cultural change that we've gone through, cultural differences and all that stuff, because some guys don't get it, So we're putting every supervisor in the fire department through this class, this 8-hour class, and we have 3,800 supervisors in the fire department that have to go through the class. That's uniformed and civilian. And
I think I told you the story of when I got the chief's job here in Farmington. I was worried about the some of the age differences of a 21-year-old rookie and a 30-year battalion chief getting in a fist fight over what they're going to watch on TV that night. So we actually hired a consultant to come in and do a values assessment.
Right.
And I was actually kind of shocked at what came out of that. And across the board, young, old, male, female, whatever, the values are there. And they're on the job because they want to do the job right. The difference is in the way they learn and what motivates them to do the job.
Right. I mean, we come from an era, you and I, where you're offered overtime, you take it, you make more money, it's cash, and you do stuff on your house with it, or you take a vacation with your family. Generation today, it's all about time off.
Oh yeah,
all about time off. It's all about time off. That's they want their time off. I'm good. I don't need overtime. I'm off 3 days. I'm off 2 days. I'm on a swing. I want my time off. So everybody, they got their own set of values, which is okay. But for usins, we have to adjust to that, And again, a lot of people who in our age group, a lot of guys aren't going to fires anymore in my age group, anybody. But a lot of stuff, people from the last generation will just say they don't get it, and they better get it because the old behavior, if you will, it's not tolerable anymore. Nobody wants to tolerate. Nobody wants to deal with it. So.
No, the age thing finally set in because my baby brother is at the maximum age in Jersey, and he's going to be retiring in May.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. And man, I'm just not. He's doing better with it, I think, than I am.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, and that's what happened. And I've come across that in the job now. Where I knew guys from a long time ago, all over the fire service. How can that guy be retired? Who the heck was it recently? I said, you can't be retiring. You retire when you're like 25 years old, aren't you? And the guy's, 25, 30 years has gone by, and the guy's, 55. He's not 25.
Well, our longtime friend of the show, Mike West, is getting ready to go.
I saw he announced that on one of the guys, one of the chiefs out in Eastern Connecticut, a guy named Mark Scrivener from the city of Willimantic. He just put his papers in, and he's on LinkedIn. So I write, hey, Scriv, you taking up? I sent him a note. And he says, I'm retiring. He says, but I'm staying in the area, and he's going to work for a nonprofit. But real good guy, smart. And Willimantic is one of those depressed cities, and just being the chief there for, I think, probably 10 years. He has had his challenges, this guy, and I'm sure by now he is just beat to shit. But he kept the stiff upper lip. Came to the Chiefs meetings every month, smiled, was smiling and said, yeah, we'll get there. Don't worry, And for many years, he didn't have a deputy. He didn't have a number two, his career department, And they gave him, he finally talked him in. It took him 5 years, I think. He talked him into giving him a deputy, and life was good again with that extra set of hands, So, yeah.
Mike West is the true Jersey kid.
Yep.
Because one of the things that he does regularly is travels around following Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. And you wouldn't think of it to look at Mike, but that was my question to him. I said, you going to work for the E Street as a roadie?
Yeah, he'd love that, I'm sure.
Oh, he'd have a field day.
So just as a side note, as long as you brought that up, the last 2 nights, last night and the night before, Paul McCartney just did a pop-up concert in Manhattan at a small venue. Like they announced it at 12 o'clock. Hey, Paul's going to be at this auditorium tonight. If you want tickets, they're $50. So McCartney did 2 nights at the Bowery Theater. Yeah, just pop up $50. I mean, how cool is that?
The 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live has been running little programs. And one of them was the music of SNL. Yeah. And McCartney showed up on 2 of those deals.
Yep. Yeah. Well, they regularly had people just pop in at the last second. That some of them didn't even know it. Of course, the audience never knew it. But he did 2 pop-ups the last 2 nights down. It's a little 600-seat theater, and it's called the Bowery Auditorium or the Bowery Theater or something. And $50 to see a legendary Beatle, man. How cool is that?
That'd be great.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I took Fran to see Ringo. And Ringo was in town, and he was at the Beacon Theater Beacon's in the 70s up on Broadway. And we were supposed to see him COVID year. Of course, they said, we're going to postpone the concert 1 year. So then we got to 2021, and it wasn't over yet. So we're going to go another year. So we waited 2 years. But those tickets, I had to remortgage the house for them tickets, man. Let me tell you. Holy shit, But it was worth it. She's a big Beatles fan. I grew up listening to him. My sister was older than me, So she was a child of the 60s. I was a kid, but I know every song ever written by them because she played them over and over and over. So I said, you know what? Okay, I'm a Beatle fan. So I took my wife to see Ringo. So at least we wanted to see one Beatle before they all went to Beatle heaven. So what can I tell you?
So I was poking around. In fact, I think I was up on Statter and talk about a fire you guys had in the city yesterday. Was at a Buddhist temple up in the Bronx, and I think it was a 3-bagger. But there were a couple of things that struck me looking at the video, and I love buffing in New York City, and I haven't done it in years. But the guy that was shooting the video made it up to the roof of the building down. Either I think it was across the road or whatever.
He always does. That guy gets in everywhere. We don't know how he does it, but he gets in everywhere and ends up on the roof across the street.
But they shot part of that, and it kind of remind me of going back to Chief John Donnelly talking with the press and his command presence, and they did a clip of Chief Esposito doing a press conference. Of course, this was a double fatal 3-alarm fire, probably going to be newsworthy even in the big city.
Right.
And just watching him deal with the media, he's got great command presence.
Yeah, and John is a kind of guy, he doesn't get rattled. He's a very laid back, easygoing guy. It's very hard to rattle that guy. So that's not going to rattle him, that stuff. No way. And he's smart. He's smart. The wheels are turning at 150 up there, man. So he's but one of his appeals is that this was the second fatal we had in a week where the hydrant was blocked with a car. That's the issue now. So that we got the news people in the boat. Even this morning on the way in on 10-10 winds, guy said, "Hey, by the way, we got word from the fire department, and they're asking you not to park on fire hydrants. Don't block the hydrant." So the news media themselves are trying to spread the word on behalf of the fire department. But it turns out we had 2 fatals in a week, one in Brooklyn and then in the Bronx yesterday morning, the 3rd alarm in the Bronx. I saw it. The citywide commander was Chief Sirocco. I saw him in the morning. He just came from there. In fact, he still smelled. I said, "You smell wonderful," So I started to smile. But at that point, they had 1 fatality, and the other one was in a hospital. But that other person passed in the hospital. But it was 2 buildings. It was a frame house on fire, and then the exposure court with the church and everything. So it was they all got out. Whoever was in the church got out.
One of the things I noticed was, the headline said fire in a Buddhist temple, and I'm looking at these 2 buildings, and if you didn't know what was in there, the other one looked like a residential occupancy as well.
It was. Yeah, it was. Both of them. One was a resident. One was a house. The other one, the temple, was converted into the temple. It was a house. So it looked like originally when they pulled up, they said, "We got 2.5-story frame structures going," and then they realized that when they got in there, what it was. But yeah, it was a converted.
And I hate to harp on it, but it's always been one of my deals of you got to know your district, because if you didn't, how would you ever know that there was a Buddhist temple in that building? You wouldn't.
Right. And I don't know if they did or didn't. Just the first guy that gave the first size up on arrival. It's 5 a.m. It's pitch dark. You got two. It looks like you got 2 houses on fire for the most part. But then within short order, they said we got a house, and they called it a church originally because they call everything a church, right? No matter what it is. So
I can remember Chief McGrath telling me a story of I don't think it was Meridian, but it was another incident. And he hadn't been on the job all that long. And they were out, and I guess his mom called the firehouse. And I don't know who she got on the phone, but she's like, "Oh, I just wanted to make sure Johnny was okay." He said he took crap for that for
a long time. Yeah, he was. I don't know if he was even an officer. Was he an officer yet when that happened?
I don't think so. He was. I think he was a grunt for Meridian.
No. Because I remember him saying in the hallway, because McLaughlin, I think, gave him. McLaughlin was the incident commander. He was the deputy, and I think John said he says you're the bastard that made us stretch the hose up 22 floors. Up the 5-inch hose, up 22 floors. He says I remember you giving me an order. So he might have been a lieutenant by that time. But the beat goes on, right? The beat goes on.
Yes. God, I thought about him the other day. How much I miss him.
Yeah, man. Listen, John was an institution in of himself. He was a one of a kind guy. A ton of experience, a ton of sports metaphors, which we all know about, right? I mentioned that at his funeral when I spoke at the dinner afterwards. When I spoke about John, they gave me the microphone for a good 15, 20. And I had my marks prepared. And I said, I don't know if all you John's friends, non-fire department, I said, you all know he did a lot of sports metaphors, and a lot of them never heard that. Which I think he saved it. That was his firehouse stuff. That was fire service stuff. 2 outs, bottom of the ninth. We're on the 2-yard line, and all the other ones he used to do. But and the first time I threw it on him, he didn't even know he was saying it. You're like, do I do that? So he was a unique guy, no doubt about that, man. God bless you, Johnny McGrath. Oh man.
Hey, I saw a deal posted from our friends at the Fire Safety Research Institute, and I think of the Kerber Madrikowski show every time I hear that.
How could you not?
But they've been doing a lot of stuff with the NEARS. And we talked a little bit about it a couple months ago. The National Emergency Reporting Information System, what basically is going to become the new ENFRS for fire reporting. And they're putting together a webinar. And I like going to free stuff on the web because I can sit here in my pajamas and watch and see what's going on. But the webinar is called NEARS in Action. And operational usage in the road ahead. We're getting closer to, this becoming a reality. And here's the opportunity to take an hour out of your day to get up and get on the webinar and see what's going on with this stuff and where it's at and when it is going to impact you. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, because it's happening. And I'm hoping that they've listened to some of this stuff from others in the past. And I was never a big ENFRS fan. And if you'll allow me to digress, if say you had a food on the stove fire in the kitchen of a non-ambulatory healthcare facility, and you went to go to code that into ENFRS, you could do that in about 12 different ways from Sunday. And basically, if you're trying to do data analysis off of something that a captain that's probably pissed off about writing a report anyway, to put in there, but you're dealing with the old Ron. I'm sure you were familiar with the acronym. Wait a minute. GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out.
I call it GIGO, but that's okay. Yeah, that's
Sorry, it's the Jersey accent.
Okay.
I'm hoping that they'll cut down on some of the stuff to try to get a better picture of what the fire problem is in America. And I'm kind of excited to see this come out. Hopefully it's not going to create a lot of heartburn. I mean, we're doing the reporting on computers now. And I know when we talked about it the last time, Ron, the city was beta testing some of that stuff.
Yep.
And,
testing it. Yep.
But that webinar is going to be on February 18th at 1300 hours Eastern time. And certainly you can go up on the Fire Safety Research Institute website and get registered for it.
Interestingly enough, Tom, we talk about, people, it's not if or when, or, there's always a dust up about new stuff, and interestingly enough, we had Billy on a couple of months ago talking about the OSHA thing. And It's quiet now.
Yeah.
The dust has settled, and I don't know if the fire service doesn't care, which they should, or if they got it out of their system, like that sucks, and then okay, it's over, or they looked at it and said, all right, we got to start working toward it, and that's really what they should be doing. You got to start working toward compliance. So, but the things come and go. The dust kicks up, the dust settles, and we keep going on to the next thing that everybody hates. What are you gonna do? But that's good information, man. That's cool. There was a pretty good train fire also in Philly on the SEPTA line. Fire coming out the windows, and they said right now they're saying it started underneath the car somewhere, maybe in the carriage, but it took the whole car. Everybody got out. But to that end, what that reminded me of is recently UL did some testing on Amtrak. Amtrak gave them one or two cars.
Huh.
And they put lithium ion battery bikes inside the cars because Amtrak was wondering, like, can we let people travel with these? Can they put them? So they did it like 3 or 4 different ways. They did a couple of burns. They had the bike hanging up on a hook, so it was kind of vertical. Then they had it hanging up but horizontal. Then they had it sitting on its tires in a separate compartment, and then in the general passenger compartment. They did it 3 or 4 different ways, and I think Amtrak, after it was all over, we sent some of our people. We have 4 or 5 guys from FDNY went. I forgot where they did it, but 4 or 5 of our guys went to witness it from Hazmat, and I think Amtrak unequivocally said, "Okay, this is the way we're going. They're going to let people do it, but it's got to be compartmented. It doesn't have to. They're not doing a separate fire compartment, but." They did a whole bunch of testing, and they showed, eventually 1 or 2 of those tests, the fire was coming out the windows of that train car in short order. So I just read something also about that, where they said the toxicity is what got to some of the people, not on the train. It was a structure fire somewhere with the bikes. It was a multiple dwelling, and the toxic gas is coming off the batteries. When that battery lets go initially, there's some hydrogen. I think hydrogen fluoride. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but
I remember.
It's pretty toxic. The stuff coming off the battery before it explodes and goes on fire, and people were succumbing to that.
I was taking, the Arson Investigators Association is in cahoots with an online training group called CFI Trainer, and there's like 100 different, like 2-hour training programs on there.
I've seen it.
And I just took the lithium ion one maybe a week ago.
Okay.
And it got into the science behind how those batteries work, because I had no clue. And some of the challenges for the investigators doing that, as well as the firefighters trying to put those things out.
Yep.
What causes the thermal runaway and all the kind of craziness that goes out with trying to put one of them out. I don't envy you, Ron, having to deal with some of that.
I don't have to do it, so you can envy me all you want. but I ended up learning all of that stuff because we're in the middle of it. We're hotbed. So our hazmat guys and they were learning as they went along. As one of them aptly put it at a little symposium that we had in 2022, we're building a plane as we're flying it. They're telling the guys in the audience. They invited the fire service. We had 300 guys come, and we said, "Listen, we're building a plane as we're flying it here." But I learned just from going to those seminars and talking to the hazmat guys and reading some extra stuff. And before you know it, it's another whole science. But never really thinking about it from the fire investigation side. And our fire marshals were in the middle of that whole thing also. So they had to learn the way, whatever you saw, they had to learn that early on. It goes back 2 years already, 2.5 years. So, so that leads to like this thing with this Philly train fire and this testing they did on Amtrak. We're looking at our transit system in the city. Like we don't want those bikes in the subway cars, and we don't want them on buses and on all of that kind of. So that's the next thing we're talking about. And then we get up against the transit authority, and then the mayor is very people and business friendly. Like you can't stop them from taking their bike on the train. Well, yeah, but look what might happen, So it's a challenge. It's always a challenge, and thank God we got leadership like John Esposito and Kevin Woods, our chief of operations, and Chief Correo in charge of fire prevention. These guys, they're all smart guys, and they work together, put their heads together. We got a lot of stuff going on, and they're continually, they got the gloves on. If it's not with with trying to get codes and laws passed, it's something else. There's always a fight somewhere, but you need those good, smart leadership guys to do that work. Frankly.
So I noticed, as I think I told you earlier, got a date conflict. Was looking forward to going to FDIC this year, but unfortunately, it is being presented at the same time as the International Association of Arson Investigators Conference. And since I've got commitments to there, I will not be attending FDIC this year, which breaks my heart. But I was wondering, I know you're going, but what are you teaching? Tell me about it.
I will. First of all, when I'm there, I'm going to be known as the Backstep boy.
Yeah.
Where's the Backstep boy? They're going to say, So I'm doing. Yeah, I did the program last year. I guess it was a hit, because if it's not a hit, they don't ask you to come back and do it again. But I do a course called "Fight the Fire, Not the Building," and really what the message is: fight the fire and don't fight with the building, so to speak. Take advantage of the built-in fire protection, active and passive. If you got fire doors, instead of opening the doors, shut the doors. And learn sprinkler systems and learn standpipes and basically take advantage of what the building has to offer. The fire codes and building codes are full of requirements all over the country to have these people install all of this shit into the building to make it safe. Take advantage of that. So that's kind of my message. It's an hour and 45 workshop. I believe it's Thursday from 3:30 to 5:30, and that will be that. Yeah, so I'm doing that. It'll be a quick, like last year, big 48 hours in Indianapolis. Get in there Wednesday, leave the ass crack of dawn Wednesday morning, get an early flight. Last year, I got there before breakfast, man. I got there like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, so it was perfect. Went to the opening ceremony, walked right into the convention center, and then off to the races for the day, seeing everybody and comparing notes and chatting with people. And then I think last year, Wednesday night, if I'm not mistaken, was the author's dinner. They have an author's dinner. Went to that.
I got to be Jerry Tracy's date for that.
Yes, you were Jerry Tracy's date. Yes, the author's dinner, and then yeah. So quick 48 in and out, and that'll be that. So I got one more item I just wanted to bring up, Tommy. We're kind of coming on a 60-minute mark, but on February 27th, which is a week from now, is the 50th anniversary of the New York telephone fire. Okay, the New York telephone fire was on Feb 27, 1975, on 2nd Avenue in Manhattan. And this was the telephone buildings. There's no windows on the telephone buildings. And it was rocking and rolling and burning. All plastic wire, plastic coatings, tons of PVC. If you ever see that, there is a quintessential picture of that building burning, and the column of smoke coming out from wherever it's coming out from, because there's no windows, like the basement part and the roof. It looks like an oil tank on fire. And so a lot of guys, this is 75, a lot of guys operated without masks. There was a tremendous cancer rate after that fire. The proponent, the guy who charged up the hill about the fire, was a guy named Danny Noonan. And the Noonan brothers, I don't know how many, there must have been 50 of them that were firemen in New York City. But I think he was in the job with, I think, 2 of his brothers. There was at least 3 Noonans on the job at one time. And he was really the first guy. They given him the credit to talk about cancer in the fire service. The Danny Noonan talked about a lot of guys got sick after that fire immediately, within a couple of days. Sore throats, respiratory problems. And then as time went on, they started to pass from cancers. And so his whole life, he was an advocate for cancer in the fire service and guarding against it. Unfortunately, we lost Danny in July of 2024. He lived probably way past the time that he thought he would, because he was a fireman in the South Bronx for 20 years before that. He was in Ladder Company 3 in Midtown when they got called to that fire downtown, and lived all these years with all the effects of the smoke from the New York Telephone Company fire. There is there's a wall, there's an entire wall at our fire academy dedicated to the New York Telephone Company fire. And
Wow.
he wrote an article about it, maybe for the 40th, maybe 10 years ago. He said his generation's, as a firefighter, it was his generation's 9/11. That's how many guys died from that fire. He said this was on 9/11, the telephone company fire. So there is a current article on fireengineering.com, and it says 50th anniversary New York telephone fire. Open that up and look at it. And I think there is actually a picture of that wall. And on that wall, other than pictures of the fire and stuff, there's a shot of young Danny Noonan in his uniform, up framed, and they did a nice job. And I think what's his name did all of that stuff. When Frank Lieb was the chief of training, he put up the telephone company wall, and he did a whole bunch of other things in the fire academy to really do it out. But when you guys get a chance, take a look at the telephone company fire in New York in 1975. It's 50 years. Tribute to those guys first. What else you got, buddy? We winding down, or you got something else?
What do you got for the book club?
Okay, so I got two. I got two new books, two of them. So this one, I'm not sure but I put this one up. Maybe I put it up a few months ago, called The Unthinkable by Amanda Ripley. Who survives when disaster strikes and why? Fascinating read. And she talks about large disasters that we all know. Talks about the people who survived the Trade Center, that got out, and why they got out, what their thinking process was. It's written on a very, very high level. This gal's, I'd say she's a half a genius, maybe a full genius, but she wrote her high level shit in such a way that guys like you and I can understand it. I mean, it's a phenomenal read. But she talks about the Air Florida crash and the guy that jumped off the bridge. I think it was a maintenance worker who dove into that icy water because he heard somebody yelling, "Help me!" They were in the Potomac in February in a snowstorm, and she talks about that guy, what motivated him to go in, and why those people survived, hanging on to the stuff while he went back in again, and so she talks about famous stuff, crashes and air crashes and all this other stuff. And it's an absolutely amazing read. It's called The Unthinkable by Amanda Ripley. She's a New York Times bestseller author. My other one I'm reading now, I'm halfway done, and it's called Men and Things I Saw in the Civil War Days. It's written by General James Rustling. He was a general in the Union Army. Sorry for all you guys below the Mason-Dixon, but he was a general in the Union Army. And what he did was each chapter is about a general. He writes about, let me get to the quick contents here. But he does chapters on Lincoln, Johnson, McClellan, Burnside, Hooker, Meade, Thomas, Sherman, Sheridan, Grant, Lee, and then talks about some other stuff. This is his original manuscript. You can see the way it's kind of typed on an old typewriter. Let me see if you guys can see that. And it's like photocopied into the book. And there's no ISBN number on this. There's no copyright. It just says 1899 on the front page, man. It's cool as hell. If you're a Civil War buff, you need to see this book. I'm not a civil. Tommy is. I'm not. But this caught my eye. Somebody posted something on LinkedIn, and he talks about all the generals, good and bad, good decisions, bad decisions. They weren't good decision makers. They should have attacked. They didn't attack. All that stuff. But phenomenal book. Just the way it reads. It was this guy's personal diary, and he recorded all the stuff. Very, very cool. So not a fire book, and neither is the other. Well, the other one's kind of, The Unthinkable is kind of like related. So what do you got, pal?
So, I have a affection for Gamewell equipment.
Yes, I know.
And, I had got lucky enough to find a gem up the road in Colorado. Was a Gamewell box. It's one of the oval shaped, which are kind of rare, but it was in Grand Central Terminal in New York City.
You told me about it.
Yes, and I had to do a little research, and I forgot that I had this book.
History of the Fire Alarm and Police Tele. Wow, I never saw that book.
Yeah, it.
How old is the book? Like when was it published?
Stand by.
Standing by. I just spotted another book on the shelf. I got to get it down while you're looking for that. Everybody, don't go away.
2005, Ron.
Oh, okay, so it's fairly 20 years ago. Okay, it's not like from the 40s or something.
There's another one now, Paul Ditzel. You ever see it? He's got one out that's called Fire Alarm. This one's a little more in depth.
Cool.
I found actually it had a chapter on the telegraph boxes for the railroad. So I sent an email out. The railroad's got its own fire brigade, and they're an IAFF local. So I shot a note out to the union president.
Oh, right in Grand Central Terminal, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they got a little mini rig that could actually drive through the terminal. Oh yeah, they got the whole 9 yards over there. Yeah.
So, and he was kind enough not only to write me back and let me know where that box was located, he also sent me the running cards for it.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I got lucky with that one. I haven't started the refurb on that one yet, but it's sitting in the line of many game wall boxes that I should be fixing up.
Well, basically, the saying I have about you, Tommy, when I tell people, I said he's a tough buff and it's never enough. So there you go. He's a tough buff and it's never enough. So cool. I read this book a few weeks ago. Not sure if I showed it last time. More fire. That's what we need. More fire. Okay. The guy that wrote this, Nat Siegeloff, he was the publicist for the movie Towering Inferno, also 50 years ago.
A classic.
Great, yeah. But he talks about what Hollywood was like back then. He talks about Irwin Allen through the whole book. Irwin Allen's first gig was the Poseidon Adventure, flipped the boat over, and then his next disaster movie was Towering Inferno, and then he went on to do a TV series. He did Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, which is also a movie that became a TV series. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea was his. He did Lost in Space and a couple others. And but really cool read. It's kind of fire related, but the first probably third of the book is about how screwed up Hollywood is, with all and he talks about the actors. Paul, they had an all-star cast in this movie. Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, Fred Astaire. I can't remember. Let's see if there's some of it's on here right off the bat. But it was an all-star cast. There was at least like 10 headliners in this one movie. And he talks about, as we all know, Steve McQueen's the fire chief. He goes up to blow up the water tanks on the roof to put the fire out near the end of the movie, and they actually strapped in all those big movie stars to a pole on the set, and they rushed in a couple of million gallons of water past them while they were holding on. So they actually got wet, and they did the real thing. But he talks about how the special effects. There wasn't a lot in 75. Not like it is today. So it was very difficult to show fire on a screen back then. But really cool read. If you're looking for something cool, okay, More Fire, Building of the Towering Inferno, 50th Anniversary Explosion by Nat Siegeloff. And I was fortunate they did a full day high-rise seminar at John Jay College about 2 months ago. And they kind of beamed him in from California. He's still a Hollywood guy, and he talked about all the stuff that kind of put in the book. He talked about his experiences with the movie and everything. And then at the end, he says, "Hey, I just wrote this. Everybody go out and buy it." He's kind of a character, this guy, but pretty cool. If you're looking for a cool read, just take a couple of nights and you can knock it off. But I said to my wife after I read, I said, "You know what? I'm going to have to either go to YouTube or on the cable. We only have 8,000 stations on cable." And I'm going to talk into the remote and say Towering Inferno, because I got to watch the movie over again. I haven't seen it in 50 years. I saw it once when it came out, but I haven't seen it in 50. So I'm going to have to treat myself and sit down and watch it one more time, and then critique the hell out of it, of course.
Yes, of course.
Right and wrong. Interestingly, just a side note, Steve McQueen, when he read the script initially, they had him in Paul Newman's part, who was the architect. And McQueen read the whole thing and went back to Irwin Allen and said, "I want to be the fire chief." And he said, "Why?" He said, "Because he's the only guy not guilty of anything bad in the picture. Because the architect was held responsible, the contractor cut corners, everybody was a bad guy except the fire chief." He said, "I want to be the fire chief." So that was the one thing that I found interesting. The second thing was they gave him, the costume gave him turnout gear and a helmet and all that stuff. And he figured out early on that if he had the helmet on, even if he put it back a little bit, you really couldn't see his full face and his gorgeous blue eyes. So he had them modify the helmet and put a shorter brim on the front so the screen can capture his blue eyes. This is the shit that Siegeloff talks about in his book. It was great. It was absolutely great. It was great. So that's it, pal. You have a roster for us tonight? You have a rundown?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I do.
So as we do, we always pay tribute to our fallen. Tommy, give us the list for today. Hopefully it's short.
The last we recorded was on January 17th. And since then, there's been 4 line of duty deaths, according to the U.S. Fire Administration website. First was Roger Lathrop from Millertown, PA, who suffered a heart attack while responding to a call back on January 23rd. Christopher Clevenger from Sweet Springs, Missouri, suffered a heart attack after an incident on January 26th. Mark Edez from Hartford, California, suffered a line of duty death from an unknown medical on a fire scene back on February 1st. And then Jacob Kincaid from Richlands, Virginia, passed away from injuries sustained in a motor vehicle accident on February 3rd. Again, keep the family of the fallen in your thoughts and prayers and heed the lessons that they've left for us. That's all I got, brother.
Yeah, and then unfortunately we had good debt to that list from last night, from yesterday in Binghamton, New York. So do what you need to do out there. Do what you have to do to get in between death and injury on his job and the members in your department, whatever it takes. Sometimes you got to be the bad guy. Whether you're an officer or not. You have to be an officer. You could be a 2-year firefighter and say, "Hey, put your helmet on, put your gloves on, put your face shield down."
Which also reminded me of something I was going to bring up. And highway incidents. Just looking at the fire media over the last month, the number of vehicle accidents is astounding. And I know it's winter and I know it's icy, but something we need to think about, something we need to train on. And if you go to Responder Safety, their website, they've got a ton of training material out there, and it's all quality stuff.
Yep.
Take the time to go over this stuff with your crews and try to do some preventive measures to make sure that we're not getting squished on the highway.
Yeah, those guys, they do a great job. They've been around for a long time. Responder Safety, and they, like you said, I'm glad you said that, they do quality stuff. They got a lot of great stuff out there. So with that, looks like our time's about up. So we're going to say, until we're up on the backstep again together, be safe, slow down, buckle up, eat right, eat light, stop for red, use your head, watch how you drive, arrive alive. Hug your wife, hug your spouse, hug your girlfriend, hug your boyfriend, hug everybody, hug your kids, and hug them tight when you say goodnight every day. So with that, we're going to say goodnight. And Tommy, when you're done saying goodnight, we're going to leave the tape running just for another couple of minutes so Mark can put the trailer on at the end. All right. So good night, everybody.
Stay safe, everybody.